in a very straightforward manner. The academic writing is based on the fact that which attract justification to buttress the points raised by the paper. When you are writing the academic writing, you need to justify any facts you raise in this paper by providing evidence for those conditions. Let's say if somebody claimed that, let's say I claim that in Indonesia, number of population of Indonesia or number of population of Muslim in Indonesia, I need to buttress such a fact with an evidence. I cannot just claim that. In other writing, you might be able to succeed with it, but when it comes to academic writing, it is not acceptable. So there is need for justification to buttress any point being raised, any factual point being raised in academic writing. So this academic writing this is because it attracts criticism. Even if the paper has been written over centuries, people can still reference to that argument, that this argument raised by a particular researcher is not tenable, or this argument raised by a particular researcher need further clarification. So the researcher needs to be very, very confident and very careful in any claim, because there is going to be future reference to whatever he wrote today. Therefore, the researcher must be conscious of their academic claims, as they may be subject to future verification. The purpose of academic writing. The purpose of academic writing is to fulfill the academic requirements. Academic requirements, that means contribute to the university rating. The more you publish in an institution, it will contribute to the rating of that particular university or college. So it's a means of contributing to the university rating. It is a means of fulfilling the requirements by the university or academic environment. But also, it's more attractive to the employer, to be more attractive to this, especially in the academic world. Especially in most of our Ph.D. students, they need to publish if they have not been employed. This number of publications they have made meaningful, let me buttress on this. Number of the meaningful publications they might have made may be a selling point for them to be able to be attracted to the employers. So in writing an academic paper, the contribution, the extent of which the significance needs to be taken into consideration. That is only when the employer will see the academic writing as an attractive point. So to keep researchers up to date in their field, there is a need for the researcher to be updated in their field. The world is dynamic. The world is moving at a very high speed. In order to catch up with the field, not to be left out, you need to write an academic paper in order to understand what is going on in your particular field of discipline. For academic promotion also, this is why in most cases university try to put the publication as part of key performance indicators for the academia. That is, the number of publications in each year has to be stated, and it must be published in a reputable journals. This is clearly emphasized. And also another purpose is that to understand the world from the academic point of view. When a situation is happening around us, an academia, the way the academia will look into this situation will be different from a layman. This is through the understanding of what is going on around the world from the academic point of view, to prevent dullness in the revolutionary world of artificial intelligence. If one is not continued to publish articles, one will become redundant in his field of research. So the revolution world, we are now in the revolutionary world of artificial intelligence. We can imagine what is going on in the academic world. We have ChatGPT, we have many applications that try to replicate what a human being can do. So in order to be able to be more relevant, we need to continue publishing articles in our field. Also, to keep the researcher name remembered forever. Once you publish an article with a significant contribution, the other researcher will continue to cite your paper. Continue citing your paper, make your name to be existing on and on. Even if the publisher is no more, the names will remain on the internet, and people will continue to be referencing to what work of academics they have been done. To keep a broadened way of doing things and making more life comfortable, through the research, when you conduct a research, you find a new way or dynamic way of doing things. So, in such a way, if it gives a kind of significant contribution to the human world, you contribute to the comfortability of the world. This makes me support that the Quran verses that says against the scarcity, because in most of the economic concepts, we are made to understand that the contents of the scarcity. But the Quran made us to understand that it is due to our lack of knowledge that we are able to believe in scarcity. This can be portrayed by the fact that during the prophets, till the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they either use the camel or they use the horse as a ride. Now we are using car through the innovation, through the technology, through the finding of how we can use aeroplane to travel a far distance within a short period of time. This is through the knowledge it makes our life to be more comfortable, and through our research, we're able to come out with a new findings. This is and the issue of scarcity may be something has to do with limited knowledge. And to reward, another purpose of the academic writing is to reward the papers, the researchers that contribute significantly to the humanity of life by rewarding them the Nobel Prize. We have realized that some of the researchers have been given the Nobel Prize in different fields. This is just to encourage more researchers to do more good things so that the comfortability will occur in human life. So the essence of writing academic paper is not for the purpose of publishing alone, but also to contribute to the life of the humanity. So writing, when we talk about writing, we understand that the purpose of writing is to convey an essential message to a particular targeted group of population. For the message to be essential, the information needs to be relevant and meaningful for the targeted population. Let's say I want to convey an information to a 3-year-old child. I must use the relevant communication means that will make him or her understand what I'm referring to. So this implies that whatever we are writing must be conveyed to the people we targeted to in a very comfortable way. We should try to minimize academic jargons in our writings so that the message we intend to present will be clear and have a meaningful sense to the targeted population. Then target group is the group that the researchers have in mind to deliver the message to. When writing an academic paper, we need to put our targeted group in mind. What level of their understanding needs to be considered? If I am writing to a professor and I deliver the message to undergraduate students, this means I did not put the targeted group into consideration, because writing an academic paper that will be understood by the professors will be different from the writing an academic paper that will be understood by the students. Professors have acquired some basic understanding of the concept. So immediately they see some of my words, they understand what I'm trying to pass across. But in terms of the student, they are just a new learner. They need to be, the kind of paper needs to be broken down into level that they will be understood, and it will sense them the particular message we want to deliver. So why do we need to write? We need to write to address a particular problem or problems, either by providing solution or solutions. When they are talking about academic writing, there is a kind of issues that you are trying to provide a solution for, or by calling people to aware of the trend in a possible opportunity in the near future, or the need for change in directions. It's this academic writing will enable one to call the attention in different perspectives, either providing solution, either to educate on the trend, or to cause the need for the changing in direction. The source of getting information on writing can be from the news. We can obtain researchable idea from the news, from the perspective that the news is being broadcasted globally. What is happening in US, we can be able to understand what is happening in US wherever we are. This news conveys a sense of information that may be researchable further in a particular location. Then also the information to research on can be from our neighboring environments, that is environment where we are living. In your neighborhood, there may be an issue that will warrant you to research further or to provide a significant contribution to. So your neighborhood or your environment is also another source in which you might be able to get information about what is going to be researched on. The business you are working with. If you're working in a business environment or even in institutions, we might be able to look around our work environment and able to generate a kind of researchable idea that will convince to the people what is the solution to a particular problem. Then through the communication with people, you can also get researchable idea through the communication with people. When you communicate with people, you might be able to understand more about what is going on, even within the context of that people or within a specific population. So it's the idea about getting source of information can also be through the observation. You might be able to observe certain scenario and draw the inference on what is being done, that there's need for us to conduct a research on this particular area. There are many ways in which the information can be obtained or researchable idea can be got. There are in abundance of research around us. Okay, a broad view of academic writing. When we talk about the academic writing, an aspect of an academic writing is an article. When you write an article, the article writing, you undergo rigorous review. That make it different and make it also more rewarding in the academic world. When you publish an article from a reputable journal, the weight given by the institution regarding the KPI is more or even higher than any other academic writing. Then the conference paper is another way of academic writing, but for you to have presented in to do the conference paper, you need to comply with the conference theme. That is, when a conference is about a particular area or theme, your academic paper needs to be fit into that theme of the conference before the paper can be accepted. But in terms of the article writing, you can come up with any new idea and you can submit to the regular publications, which does not confine you to any theme of the particular thing. The only thing you need to watch is about the scope of the journals you are submitting to. Another form of academic writing is to write a book or chapters in a book. So many researchers tend to contribute to the book writing by firstly starting with chapters in some books. The researchers from different fields will be collaborating to write a book together. So you can contribute your chapters into that book. That is a portion of the book. But if you have a very broad understanding of a particular field and you believe that there's a need for certain idea to be brought about, there may be a need for a particular researcher to write a book of his own interest. And also we have a kind of another academic writing known as case study. In the case study, it is a niche and not to be generalized for the purpose. Well, let's say we have a particular set of populations or set of community being suffering for a particular situations, we might try to use them to understand what is going on in that kind of an environment in order to understand how to solve their problem or what kind of solutions can we suggest to them to go into. In this, it is a unique environment. When you are talking about case study, it is a unique environment. Because of the uniqueness in this environment, it is not something you can generalize for people. When you talk of generalization, there must be something that can be replicatable in different fields. But in the case of niche, it may not be replicable in different areas. This is because they might be guided by different terms and conditions. So those terms and conditions may not be applicable in other areas. As a result, it may be only provide a combined solution to that particular issue. Okay, in academic writing, we need to understand what can we do and what it is not acceptable in academic writing. The following needs to be adhered to in academic writing. Before you can write an academic paper, you need to organize the manuscript. Through organizing the manuscript, you'll be able to focus and structure your writing very well, because through the structuring, through organizing, you know what to place in a particular thing, in a particular location, and to what extent you can discuss that particular aspect. Then also, there is a clear, through the organizing your paper, there is a need for you to have an expression that is clear, precise, concise, so that your expressions need to be clear, precise, concise, and accurate as much as possible. So, well sourced, there is a need for you, in order to achieve a good academic writing, you need to well source the sufficient article. This implies that the article needs to be reviewed from the reputable journals, because we have been bombarded with a lot of journals that are not reputable. So this has caused a kind of tarnish to the image of the researchers. So as a result of this, there is need for us to source our articles from reputable journals. So sourcing the article from reputable journals will enable you to have a kind of sufficient information that is tellable, or kind of information that is real and that is more accurate. So use an active word, active voice, and then avoid repetition. When you are writing an academic paper, when you use the active words, it's make your writing to be concise and also present the message in an accurate way. Then when you avoid repetition, when you include the repetition in your writing, it makes the articles to be bothersome, and the people will not have interest in the continuous reading of the articles. So instead of repeating a particular expression, you can use different transition words and in connecting your paragraph from one paragraph to another, and when you reread, you'll be able to avoid repeating sentence or expressions. So it is essential that the researcher needs to reread often and often in order to be able to make the academic paper precise and convey the necessary message without a repetition of what has been stated before. Use an appropriate transitions to show the connection between the ideas. When you want to buttress a particular idea in academic writing, it is more advisable to use the transition words. Like if you want to broaden the explanation, you can say in addition, you can use similar instead of repeating the same thing in order to buttress your point. But if in case you want to make a kind of difference in what has been opened, you can use in contractions. Why this happening? Why this in contraction to this? However, and many of these translation words will convey the message in a very clear and understanding way. Logical understanding of the paragraph is very essential, as it will make your paper to be more readable and more attractive to the readers. A paragraph with a single idea and clear topic sentence need to be. In every a paragraph that you are writing in academic paper, it must convey a single idea. You cannot lump all the idea in a single paragraph. So the only thing you can use to do is to use transition words to connect the ideas in one paragraph to another, rather than lumping several ideas in a single paragraph. And also, we need to know that any claim being made in an academic paper need to be supported by the evidence. Then the use of an action words will make our writing to be more concise. The consistency in your numbering and the formatting and the citation style is very essential in academic writing. What I mean by the consistent numbering format, let's say we have the introduction, but under the introduction, you want to bring a kind of subtitle under the introduction. The first introduction will be 1. The subtitle that will follow, because it is connected to the introduction, will be 1.1. Let's say I want to I'm in the post section of literature review, and I try to team my literature review into several sub-themes. So if my literature review that portrays the general overview of my literature review is 2, the other themes that I have to bring along that is connected to the literature review will be 2.1, 2.2, based on this will enable the reader to be consistent with your discussion without losing the important information. Then, before you submit a paper, it has to be proofread. So proofreading is very, very essential in academic writing. What I mean by proofreading, because through the proofreading, you'll be able to save yourself from different benefits of proofreading. The research idea may be clearer. When you send your paper for proofreading, even before submitting your paper, academic manuscript, it will make your idea to be clearer. Because the proofreader may detect some incomplete sentences, it may detect omission in some expressions. So this proofreader will call your attention to it. You'll be able to clarify those things even before sending to the journals of your intent. Since the proofreader is a third party to your article, the reading bias will be minimized. Sometimes we might be able to read our paper continuously, and still we might not be able to detect flaws or the mistakes in that kind of paper. But by giving it to the third party, it will be questionable by the third party because it doesn't have the same idea you put into by yourself when it is reading your paper. So, and also, based on dynamicity being used in the academic paper, a kind of Word document have a kind of what they call the review. In this review, the Word document can even help you to read what you have written. This enable you to listen to what you have written and will enable you to see if there is some things to be rectified in that bias. So, although proofreading does not guarantee acceptance of the manuscript, it reduces the chance of desk rejection for the manuscript. What is meant by desk rejection? Desk rejection is when the manuscript does not pass the initial screening. In most cases, the journals or the editors in the journals, they will check your paper submitted before passing it to the reviewers, to anonymous reviewers. Though when it is in that stage of desk checking, if it does not exceed that, by the time it is returned to the researcher, it is desk rejection. That is, they don't even allow it to be read by the reviewers. Though the manuscript was rejected upfront when you have the desk rejection, and it's very painful to the researchers because it sends negative message to the researcher about the paper being written. The researcher will be questioning him or herself whether it makes sense of what is being written or what makes this paper to attract desk rejection. So by sending to the proofreader, such a thing will be minimized, will be reduced to significantly, and do not benefit. When there is a kind of desk rejection, the researcher do not benefit from the contribution of anonymous reviewers. This means that Even at all, if the manuscript submitted passed through the desk rejection, that is, it passed through the initial screening, the editor convenes to send it to the reviewers, it is a positive sign to the researcher because they will convey the message to you, especially in the Emerald. Emerald will convey the message to you that your paper has passed the initial screening and has been considering for sending to the anonymous reviewers. This sends you a kind of message that what you are writing makes some little bit of sense to the editor. Once the editor decides, when the editor decides to send the manuscript to anonymous reviewer, it implies that the manuscript has some quality for publication. Although it does not imply that the paper will be published, but only sends message that it has some percentage of quality for publication. You are making sense in what you have written. The editor is convinced that this worth to be read by the anonymous reviewers. So what you need to be careful of when you are writing an academic paper. For one, they need to avoid use of personal, second personal pronoun, he, she. Those terms are not required in academic paper. Although some journals, some articles, you might find it shows the quality of the journals in which it is being published. The second thing is that in most cases, when we have at-home authors, some people try to use they instead of mention the name of authors repeatably and continuously. Sometimes it is more advisable to mention their names with et al. Without citing their numbers after you have cited them in full form in the first expression. This is the reason why if you are using a kind of a paragraph for a single idea, citing their names several times will refer to them as you are referring to the person you are writing to in that manner. So, and also exaggeration language should be avoided. The researcher needs to differentiate him or herself from the research findings. You cannot use exaggeration language when you are writing different terms that will show that you are having a stand that is not differentiating yourself from the research paper. This means that you have tendency, using the exaggeration language means you have tendency of influencing your findings. You have biased minds towards what will be the answer for your findings. All those things is a signal that this might have sent to the reader. The redundant words and phrases need to be avoided. We need to, when writing the academic paper, you need to avoid using contraction words, isn't. You need to using the contraction words such as isn't. You need to avoid informal terms because it's a kind of a very highly quality formal paper. You need to avoid the use of guidance in the academic papers and the colloquial expression. All this needs to be avoided in order to make it fit for the purpose. Unnecessary jargons, technically jargon, academic jargon need to be minimized, and you need to define the terms where needed. This is when a particular term is being recognized in an aspect of academic writing. That is the point. If there's need for you to further buttress that terms, that is only where you are required to explain a little bit further about that terminologies in order to bring the readers to the same level. So if you are using define the terminology in a different places or in a wrong position, it will longing the length of your writing, and then this will not enable you to avoid long expression. Long expression in most cases prevent the readers to get the gist of the discussion, and also the main idea to be carried about will be lost in the process. So in order to do that, we might vary our sentence structure. In most cases, using a simple or compound sentence is more preferable than using the complex or compound complex sentences. So we need to readjust to the extent that it will be communicating the essential information to the readers we have in mind. So the purpose of academic writing, in this aspect, I'll talk about the due diligence in ensuring the quality of academic research that we have conducted, and also I will discuss about the guidelines in writing effective academic paper. Due diligence that we need to take into consideration start from the source of data. Data source has a greater chance of affecting our finding. Because of this, we therefore need to obtain our data from the reliable source. Data from a reliable source are essential for unbiased findings. So, in terms of the qualitative data, it can be obtained from the Department of Statistics. Department of Statistics of the country we are studying with. We want to carry out our research about. This kind of data is known to be secondary data. It is secondary data because the data is obtained from the third party, but the fact that the data is more suitable for our analysis or for our research, we can use those data as a proxy to explain whatever we have in mind to the people. So the reliability from the Department of Statistics is very high. So such a data is more reputable. Then we can also get a qualitative data from a reliable database. For example, Islamic Financial Service Board, IFSB, that is established, that is in Malaysia, will be a source of that reliable database for Islamic financial information, especially when you are talking about Islamic concepts of banking and other Islamic products. We can also get our data from the World Bank database, and many of such reliable databases. In terms of qualitative primary data, that is those data from either the FSB or the reliable database or Department of Statistics or any individual reliable databases, they are known as secondary data. This is because they are the data being obtained by the third party. It doesn't even have our idea of research, but we find those data to be reliable, to be conformed with whatever we want to write on. That is why we are using that data. That is the secondary. Then we can also obtain the primary quantitative data by obtaining data from the appropriate participant. That means you can conduct a kind of questionnaires in order to be filled by the people that are affected. So qualitative data can be obtained from the experts when you conduct an interview. In the context of conducting an interview, you might need to meet the expert in the field. These are the appropriate participant for a particular topic of your interest. So when you are obtaining data from the expert, this means that you are reaching the appropriate participant in order to convey the unbiased data for you. Or you can also obtain data from the affected population that you want to study. So it's sufficient in order to be able to say that your findings is reliable and is not being biased. A sufficient sample must be used for your analysis. What is being understood by sufficient samples? Sufficient samples varies according to the number of the appropriate participants available. Let's say we are discussing about topic that is very niche in nature. Our sampling may be 4 experts in that field, 5 experts in that field, because of the niche area we are discussing about. But if the area of discussion is something that is well known and the number of experts are very large, a sufficient number of samples need to be taken. So this is what is being meant by the sufficient. That means the number needs to be large enough to replicate or to convey the necessary information. So the uniqueness of the topic matters in the number that we consider as being sufficient in a particular perspective. Let's say you want to conduct an research paper and we need to obtain data from some people. Some people, if you approach the participants that are not directly affected or that has no connection with your topic, such a data will be biased because they will only provide information based on their concept or assumptions, which might not reflect the the true life scenario. So this is because reliability of the finding is essential. So we need to use the appropriate participant in data collection, be it primary or be it secondary data. Another with continuation of due diligence, read and check the journal scope before you submit a manuscript to the journal. Is part of the due diligence that the researcher needs to be done. Each of the journal have their own scope. So when you try to submit your paper to any of the journal, you need to know the scope of that journal, because if the paper does not meet the scope of that journal, there is high tendency that the paper will be rejected. And this does not indicate that the paper has no quality, but it is being submitted to the wrong journal. So we need to take time to see whether our paper submission meet the scope of the journal before commencing the journal submission, the manuscript submission. Then organize your academic paper based on the journal's terms and conditions. Each of the journals, they have different terms and conditions of how the paper should be organized. And in this point, I need to portray that before you can send an article to a particular journal, you need to make your article or your manuscript attractive to the editor by citing some of their papers in that. If you cite some of their paper, it will send a message to them that they have chance of publishing your paper because a kind of related paper has been published in their journals by citing their articles that's published in their journal. You are trying to make your paper more attractive or meaningful to editors in order to see that you are being connected with their journals. Then you have to follow do's and don'ts. You have to follow all the do's and move away from don'ts of the journals to avoid the desk rejection. Then we need to, doing the due diligence, avoiding salami slicing for the manuscript. If you have an article with a broad topic, doing the salami slicing or salami publication means you want to convert a single paper into several papers so that you multiply your articles within short period of time for the same topic of idea. This is completely not advisable. There was a time I had the opportunity to write a paper and submit it with co-friends. So after we have tried to elaborate on that, what to be written and all that, I take the chance of writing the first draft. Then I share with my co-friends, to co-authors, to see whether the idea there is no conflicting ideas in my writings and all the rest of what is being discussed. One of our co-members told me, "Oh, why do you have to write to this extent? People are not reading too much paper. They only need 5 or 6 pages of paper. This can be converted into 3 or 4 paper. Why do you put all the information in?" This is salami slicing. I don't buy the idea, because if you write in a broad or in a full context, your paper will serve and fit many citations. It will attract the readers of different classifications. So people will continue to refer to your paper and you'll be able to be cited continuously. But if you do the salami sliding, you only make or report a kind of very small incident. It might not be significant even, because combination will create a kind of synergy in your paper, but you are slicing them into different papers. It has made that synergy to be zero. So it is not advisable to do such a thing in academic work. The way to avoid this thing is just to break down the data, breaking up of the data in a single study, try to afford it, and also you try to be more transparent in your publication. Use the most common keywords to enhance paper initiation by several researchers. If you are not doing the Salami slicing, you'll be able to use more keywords that previous researcher will be used, and the citations and the references will make your paper more appealing when the other researchers are trying to discuss on the topic of your interest. But if you do the Salami slicing, you will not be able to benefit from that. Then you need to use appropriate methodology, and the need to justify for it is very, very essential. And also, in the due diligence, we talk about plagiarism issue has become something of paramount in the academic world. Plagiarism is not only restricted to copying the other people's work. You can do the self-plagiarism. Self-plagiarism is that you believe it is your paper and you have done the work. Then you replicate that paper or portion of that paper in another of your paper. It is called self-plagiarism. If it has to be done, you need to do the normal paraphrasing that you did in another different paper to your own paper if you want to avoid this self-plagiarism. Referring to published work, even yours and even the abstract, your explanation, you need to use your self-explanation. If you reuse any of this paper that you have previously published, you need to make it clear. You need to be more transparent in referring to where and how it is being reused. Then extracting usage page may be indeed, if you extract a part, sometimes the researchers find themselves in a situation whereby the idea being, the way the idea is being expressed in a particular paper is so unique that the researcher don't have a better way to present it. So it is being advisable that if you want to do a kind of quoting or lifting from that paper, you need to do inverted comma, inverted quotations to show that you lifted that part from the particular, and it must be minimized. It is not advisable. Even if it happens, it has to be minimized. Giving the prioritization, giving the proper citation and completing reference, including the link, if possible. Whenever you are doing the citation, it is very important to cite properly. Not only the citation, not only the index citation, but also you need to reference that citation properly. Sometimes there may be need for obtaining permission from the copyright owners. So some information might be available online, and you find that information very useful for your research paper. You might need to take permission from the copyright owner so that you'll be able to be free from the plagiarism issue. And you also need to be aware of copyright protections, even the information that is freely available online. So please check the rights and the permission of reuse. Every figures, table, charts, and the graph must be sourced. Then there is need for you to mention, when you want to avoid the plagiarism issue on your paper, you have to state the source of the paper. I mean, those figures, tables, and charts. Even if you are the owners, you are the one who have made your effort to come up with that table, you need to state it as auto extraction from a particular, from series of articles, or from a particular things, or from anything you can mention of. You have to indicate it's your own extraction, but the sources of that extraction you have to indicate. This will save you from the plagiarism issue. So, guideline for writing effective research paper. For you to have a broad understanding of a particular research topic, then you have to read articles published in the reputable journals. Reputable journals are the journals that are able to do a kind of rigorous review for the article before being published. So, by reading from the reputable journal, you are reading reliable information. The general academic research idea from the article from the reputable journals will give you a meaningful idea to be discussed, and then a well-recognized idea to be discussed. This kind of publication, you have to broaden your academic paper finding and discussion. So when you are trying to broaden, that means you try to explain from different perspectives, you'll be able to provide a minimum requirements, at least, that it will avoid you from sliding idea into several publications. Let's say you want to establish a kind of relationship between a particular concept and the other, you might look into various kind of linkages that establishment, relationship that has been established by different researchers. So you can bring them together to broaden your article publication. Let's say one article has established a kind of relationship within two variables. So another one bring another variables. You can combine these together in your own paper to see if it's applicable in your location or the area in which you want to research. So then consider the targeted audience while writing your academic paper to minimize academic jargons. Always, you also need to always question each sentences when you write each of these sentences, and so what? So if you're able to question this, that, and so what, you'll be able to improve the quality of your paper and avoid unnecessary sharing information. So therefore, there's need for us to question whatever you want by minimizing unnecessary information in our writing and making our writing to be more precise. So when we are writing the academic paper, our paper needs to be well formatted. So in most cases, some of the Word documents might be in the Word format, maybe in the letter format. You need to check your format of the paper. So you want it to be in A4 format and also specifying the margin for the paper. In most cases, if you are using an inch measurement specification, 1 inch across all the margins is more advisable. Sometimes some people their computer use centimeter as a measure, then 2.5 all the margins will make your paper well organized. This has to be done before starting writing. This is because you don't need to go back to that, and your writing will be fit into the specific writing page. Then the text spacings according to the journals need to be observed. Each of the journals, sometimes the journal have a specific text spacing. If you're writing by APA style, most cases they will request it for the double spacing. But if you even at all, some journals will tell you that we want a single spacing. You just have to follow because they are the one to judge your final, and they have to combine the final decision. In most cases, we understand that Time New Roman is a common approach by most of researchers, but this 12 point is preferable, but this does not mean all for all. We need to clarify based on the journals, what is the preferable, what kind of font do they want? Then we comply with all this. On the line, we understand the line should be flux left and indented but this also needs to be verified from the journals in order to meet the terms and conditions of that journal. Reading the author's guideline provided by the journal is essential to avoid the just rejection. In most cases, when you are going to present and you are going to submit a paper to a different journal, it is more advisable for you to read the author's guidelines. This other guideline will specify what to be done and how it has to be done. It is a kind of reading on its own, and the time needs to be devoted for that reading in order to give our academic work efforts a comprehensive reward. Otherwise, we might try to omit some of important approach if we do not read the author's guideline. In most of the journals, they will recommend you to use the author's guideline, and it's very bothersome, I understand. Or some of them are more requiring, so it will help you to structure your paper according to the specification laid down by the journals. The page numbering spelling by the journals. Some journals will see the page numbering will be on the top, some will be by the right, left, by the right, center, or this one. This has to be specified in the author's guideline, and you have to comply with this when you are intending to send to that particular journal. Some journals require for the running ends. And then what I mean by the running end, the kind of information that will continue occurring in each of the pages of the article you submitted. In most cases, if you are doing the initial submission, your name should not be appear in that, because the journal wants to send your article to the reviewers that do not have idea about whom it wrote the paper. So although I have opportunity to review some of the articles whereby the reviewers and the publisher will mention the name of the authors, that is their own style. But some do not. And if those journals don't, they will specifically mention it. If the author, the researcher violated that kind of condition, they might return your paper for you to readjust or even reject the paper. So these do and don'ts needs to be considered and give an appropriate attention. The writing the paper. When you want to write a paper, the first writing will be a draft. So when you are writing, when an idea comes to you, after you have extensively read an article of your topic on that related area, you will have a kind of something that is questioning your mind that you want to address as a research paper. The first draft, you cannot complete a paper at a sit. You cannot complete a paper in 3 days if it has to be a quality paper. It is a kind of ongoing process. And then the idea will coming to you on and off. The idea can even come to you while you are sleeping. That is something we find ourselves in. So this implies that the first writing has to be a draft of the, and the first writing could be drafts, which is subject to amendment over time. So there is a continual revising or in that section that you have written. When you are revising the paper, this can be done by reading the paper aloud. When you read paper aloud, you try to understand what you have been putting across. If you read paper slowly, in your own paper slowly, sometimes when you read your own paper, you might not be able to figure out what are the mistakes or what are the other things. So, but when you read aloud, you'll be able to see, as if you are listening to the news, you'll be able to, does this one make sense? I need to correct it, or this is not complete, or this thing, you can question yourself. Then sometimes some people might prefer to give their paper to the third party to read. I would rather say the caution needs to be exercised in this manner, because if that portion is not authentic enough, it can get a broad understanding of what you are going to present and enhance it to produce a better paper for the journal of his or her own interest. This, by also taking a break from the paper and returning to the draft later, it broadens your thinking, it diversifies your thinking of writing and make your paper to be more quality. And also, they need to be conscious of accuracy, clarity, organization of the words, the word choice that you need to use. You need to be conscious of all this in order to make your writing more appropriate and attractive to the reader. There's need for grammarly check. You need to check for the grammar, spellings, and all the rest. So it is not something that can be done within a short period. It's an ongoing process. But the more you confine yourself to it, the better and the faster you can finish the work. But not a day or 2 days paper. If that is the trend, it cannot be a quality paper. Type of academic research approach. We have qualitative research, we have quantitative research, we have mixed method. So research approach, when you are talking about the qualitative research approach, that is something that you obtain your personal data, you obtain the primary data through the questionnaires or interview. That means you are the one who conducted data connection for that particular research idea. According to this Yin in 1991, say the primary purpose of conducting an in-depth inducing qualitative case study search was to determine the sponsorship phenomenon of a real life context, especially when the boundary between the phenomenon and the contents are unclear. So when you want to get an in-depth understanding of a particular phenomenon, the much better approach to use is to conduct a qualitative research. Through the qualitative research, you can get a more broadened understanding about the topic of your research topic. Then also another one is quantitative research approach. We have discussed this earlier about obtaining the secondary data from reliable third-party database, because those data meet your research idea, so you use them to convey the message to the people. But in some situations, some people use the mixed method. Mixed method, it means that when you obtain data by the two stated approach, that is qualitative and quantitative, what attracts people to use this is a question that needs to be addressed. Sometimes when you have quantitative data, you analyze your quantitative, there's a clause in that area, there's something that is still required challenging. You did not get a full understanding of what is being discussed, or you are not agreed with what you have been finding. You can conduct a kind of an interview with an expert to get more details or in-depth understanding. And some situations is that some people, maybe the available data, quantitative data, is not supportive enough to provide you a meaningful research findings. So there may be a need for you to further your research by approaching, by conducting interview or focus group in order to provide a more clarity to your findings or the curiosity that you are intend to clarify. So this mixed method can be done on it. Though the qualitative and the mixed method is a combination of different research approach that some researchers try to be curious about complying with terms and conditions, but this is not the point of correction. This is not the point to portray for now. The only thing is that it provides the opportunity for the researcher that will be able to expatiate on what has been done earlier. In academic writing, usually the general structure of academic writing is in this format. That is, before you can write an academic paper, you need to have a title. The title is a broad information about the research question intent. So your title needs to be precise, and also it has to convey the information that you further need to portray in the content of your paper. So the fact that it is very precise and broad in meaning, people will be willing to read more from your context. And then when we talk about the abstract, it's another section in academic writing, especially the article and all other academic writing. It conveys the summary of academic articles that you conducted. So in the introduction section is very essential and key. And it is a part that will enable the researchers to see whether he really understands what is discussing about. So because the introduction section needs to address what, it also needs how it can be done and why does it need to be done. These are the questions that need to be addressed while you are talking about what in the aspect of introduction. Then in most cases, it is so much challenging that some of the articles, they don't give recognition to the literature review, especially the theoretical framework. I can remember a situation when I was doing my Ph.D. I found it difficult to find a theory as very often than I supposed to. A lot of literatures, a lot of articles, they will write an articles, they will do the literature review, but they never reference to any theory that is complying with that topic of their interest. So this is something needs to be avoided in order to make our paper more reputable or more referring to in terms of citation. So in the literature review, you need to know why and how. Why this happening? What is the relationship being established by the previous researchers and how is it being conducted? You need to understand. In the literature review, you need to understand what kind of methodology they use to combine, to display this, to arrive at the particular findings. So the another section of article writing is method. When you talk of method, some people use method or methodology, irrespective of what. This method will tell you how the research can be conducted, and in most cases, some researchers, when they use the method, they try as much as possible to incorporate the data as part of the measure and the method they are referring to. That is, the source of the data, the frequency of the data, all the data has been obtained, all are combined under the method. Then the results. Under these results, we try to, especially if it's a quantitative research approach, we try to generate tables and figures. So these tables and figures, we need to understand what we enable us to establish the relationship in case we need to establish the relationship, or we're able to try to draw a line of trying to draw a line of references based on our findings or the figures. So in each of these tables on the figures, the researcher needs to put a kind of few expression under them in order to make the figure or table well explanatory, because you cannot just put a table down and want the readers to interpret the table by itself. So when you are doing this, you also need as much as possible to come in a layman's language so that what you are trying to present will be clear and meaningful to the reader. Then in some articles, generally we have the conclusions. Some articles we have you to do a kind of discussion and conclusion. Whatever be the case, whether you need to do this discussion before you go to conclusion, it has to be addressed as in the introduction part. What? You mention the purpose of what you want to establish. How do you arrive at this? You talk about the methodology that you use to arrive, and why. What is your contribution to the academic? What needs to be stated or needs to tell the limitation in this aspect of research? And also, there's a need for you to use in the referencing. You have to refer to reputable journals to make your findings more recognized, because if you use unreputable article citations and the references, people will be started questioning your findings. So in some authors, it is optional to use appendix as a complementary. It depends on the nature of the articles that is intended to address. Tips in writing the academic paper from the literature review perspective. So in conducting the literature review, this is another essential part of academic writing. Literature review enables the researcher to refer to the previous researcher on that aspect of which he is trying to convey the information. So the step of writing a literature review can include the following. The first thing is just to identify the essential topics. The topic that you want to write on, you have to identify the topics, and the researcher in that line need to be also identifying to see what has been discussed earlier, so that you'll be able to identify the gaps in the research. Then you follow up the searching article by some of the keywords that will enable you to get a kind of reliable or connected articles in your topic. And don't read the related article carefully. You take a note. You need to take note when reading the related articles. This will enable you to have a better understanding of what has been done. This also, you need to organize notes or create a kind of outline so that you'll be able to know, you'll be able to team your review according to a specific group. That's also involved in writing the review. You have to know that this is something that you need to review, edit of your writing, and continuously revising what you have written to make it your idea perfect. So incorporating the review into research paper, that is in the last stage. You cannot just incorporate it from onset. You need to control. You need to do a kind of steps before you can incorporate. That is when it can be a very significant or scientific citation, review that is being critically analyzed. Literature review helps the reader with a better understanding of the topic of your research paper. So it has to be conducted in a very appropriate manner. So writing an article paper, the article can be cited and referenced. For you to have a particular article, you need to look for the peer review article. You cannot just use any article you find on Google Scholar or any source. It has to be peer reviewed article. Because of the peer review article means that it has gone through a rigorous article review, and the people have commented on that idea being discussed. So it has been certified by some of the readers and nominal reviewers that what to be available for people to read, that is to be published. Articles that are published in scholarly journals is considered to be more appropriate to be referred to. Then you avoid the using of the magazine, website, and blogs when you are writing the articles. This is because all those information does not go through a very broad review, and people of different ideas can just give whatever being their opinion, which is not something verifiable. Use of the database for charging for the peer review. The first thing is there are a series of databases that are more reliable than we can search our article from. We can talk of Web of Science, we can talk of Science Direct, EMRA. These are the lists that are few among the list of the accessible databases that are reliable. Perform search using a variety of keywords. Okay, when you are performing a search, you can do the search by using Boolean operation. That is, when you are searching two words, you want the two words to come together, you can use and there will be quotation on the and that you are using. It has to be in capital, it will be quotation on this. That will let the search objects to understand that this and is not among your search options, but it's a kind of connecting the two different words together. So you want an article that is a kind of filtering your searching to a particular thing. Or in some situations, the researcher use or, that is, if the search engine could not find a particular article and concept, it can use the second one, also applicable to what it's trying to do. Nowadays, a kind of asterisks are being used in the keywords when you want to search. Like, if I want to search something about misconduct in any reputable journals, I can use misconduct asterisk. When you use asterisk in the kind of searching, it enables the search engine to come up for you with all the possible misconduct. It can be misconduct, it can be misconducts. In any form that have misconduct will come in that line. Let's say I want to search something relating to development or develops. Everything, once I stop at P and I asterisk it, any continuations joining the words will bring to me whether it is more relevant in my field. Like I want to talk about finance, we have financing, we have finance, we have finance. So if I stop at C and asterisk, it brings those. Instead of writing a lot of this in a separate manner, it quickens my searching and also quickens the chance of seeing more broad articles. We understand that it is part of an academic writing to use method as been discussed. So the idea from this one, academic writing is evolving all the times. The idea of web survey, according to the author, he said the idea of web survey started in 2000 by two biological accounting researchers. They just come up with the idea of, instead of collecting data like this, we can go into the web survey. Web survey by sending the questionnaire over the webs, and the people will respond to it globally. This also broadens our findings, the information we are going to get from different researchers, as it is more enable us to have a broad understanding, or more enable us to have a broad data. This, because this started in 2000, web survey started in 2000, according to the researcher, it has taken its position to stay for the last 20 years. And this is not means the end to this. So researchers have been moving beyond single instruments to capture data. This is what it says. So, and also we as a researchers, we are also moving outside writing ourselves, outside writing based on our own knowledge. We collaborate together to get different people's opinion, different people's ideas to come together in order to have a very broad understanding. So, an essential tool, due to the revolutionary approach that is evolving everywhere, the researching tools helping researchers to be able to have a better feel of what they are doing. So when you search for articles, you need to search those articles from the reputable database. when you are writing the article, you have a kind of series of application of software that is an writing assistant that will enable you to do a kind of perfecting your expression, do a kind of straighten your content. It's not that they are going to write for you, but when you write, it will perfect your process, especially the word tune. Word tune is a kind of software that when you incorporate or you subscribe to it, it will suggest a better way of writing the same idea for you. Immediately it highlighted your expression, it will suggest for you, okay, you can either present it, you can either present it like this. And also another one is Grammarly. It do what a kind of paraphrasing. The Grammarly also help in plagiarism checking. In the content, when you subscribe to the Grammarly, you'll be able to know the plagiarism content of your paper or expression that you use, or even sentence. It can quote for you the plagiarism. Then it's able to give you an upfront correctness of your expression. If it's not clear, it will say clarity is 97%, is 27%, is 3%. This will give you an insight of how do you convey the message to the people, what content do they understand. So it's engaging, it tells you whether your kind of expression is involve engagement, or whether you're able to deliver the style and the guide. All these are available in a Grammarly as a paraphrasing tools. Another thing is that when we are citing, because the world is evolving, we don't use manual citing any longer. We can use different software to do our citation by using the Mendeley. Mendeley is really available, and it is a free software you can download from the Mendeley website. Also, like Web of Science, they have the EndNotes. So if you are subscribing to Web of Science, you can also use the EndNotes, which is B, referring for your citation references. Using any of these applications will prevent you from missing of the references and save you from the plagiarism issue. Because even if you cite an article in the content, you did not referencing it properly, it is some aspect of a plagiarism issue. Then the data, in terms of the data, we have discussed about the qualitative and quantitative data. In terms of quantitative data, there are different of these software you can use to analyze. I just give an example of SPSS. Is when you obtain the data that is primarily sourced. That is a questionnaire paper. You can use SPSS. You can also use structural equation modeling. You can also use smart PLS and many more. But if you are using the secondary data, in the secondary data, you can use the eView to establish relationship between the different variables. And also you can use the starter. The starter and eViews. eView is a kind of software whereby you will be able to establish based on the combined approach that has been stated. It's a bit rigid software in which you have to pick out of the selected one. But when you are using the starter is a bit flexible in terms of the analysis approach. It enables you to use some of the commands based on certain conditions if you are confined to, able to do so. So these results, irrespective of them, they are performing the analysis approach. It depends on individual comfortability. And also the data qualitative, in terms of qualitative data, when you conduct an interview, in this aspect, you might ask the expert or the person you are interviewing whether you have the access to record them. In doing this, when you do the recording, you have to go through this transcribing. So Atlas.ti is kind of an application that would enable you to team your discussion and able to do the analysis based on the qualitative approach. Another thing we have found ourselves in doing is the Biosphere that is currently being used by some of the researchers. This app is a kind of an application that Foursquare is a kind of an application that's able to do the qualitative summary, qualitative analysis. It figure out who are the pioneers of a particular idea. You'll be able to see when the article started, the idea started be generating, who has getting more citation, and all this one. This is a different and entirely software. But the question about this Vosphere is that some of the articles and some of the journals do not like the Vosphere for the analysis, although it's very common in this nowadays. Sometimes they will say that it tries to prioritize certain researcher, is a kind of marketing, a kind of researcher. It depends on individual perspective. But what I need to establish is that there's a lot of software that is helping the researchers to achieve their research objective. And then to increase your productivity, you can also incorporate what is Notion. Notion is a kind of software that enables the researcher to state the kind of research to be accomplished in a particular period of time. Because our memory is limited, we cannot incorporate everything ourselves and remember everything but within the time scope. So if you use the Notion, you will specify in the Notion when is a due time to remind you about a particular, maybe conference, maybe journal publication, maybe call for paper, or anything you want to. So at that moment, the Notion will call your attention to it by sending message to your email that if your Notion is connected to your email, that your publication submission due in this day. Maybe you want to do anything relating to academic work, you can just give it to the Notion to be able to remind you why you might have forgot about that. So if we are using the academic, any of these tools, it could provide for us a kind of motivation that enable us to see how productive we are. Like in this situation, a researcher is being written by the Grammarly. It's over the 44 weeks, you are able to be more productive, 95% than the users of this Grammarly. In terms of your mastering of your accuracy, it is 75, vocabulary is 95. So this will keep on moving forward. This is a kind of motivation, and the researcher needs to know where and how to add more value to his writing tips. So academic writing paper, in terms of referencing, this is another aspect that needs to be thoroughly discussed. Generally, the journal specifically states the referencing preference that they need. The author needs to meet the requirement before starting writing. So if you use any of this software, you have to process the software, the citation software, based on the author's and journal's requirements. Let's say they need APA or they need ABA citations. So your styling will start with that, not until after you've finished. You have to start programming your reference point based on the specification required by DOTS. That then every fact reported in emergency should be supported by reliable evidence. So in order to avoid any unnecessary questions or any challenges based on your writing, you need, for any claim that you have made, you need to use reliable evidence or evidences to back it up. So record notes of a major point and the pages. In case you are referring to textbook, you need to mention about the author's name, the year, and the page. In most cases, it is not advisable to use books in the academic writing because of the fact that the books, by the time it comes to life or publishing, or by the time you are referring to the particular book, many new innovations have come out. People are questioning some ideas that is been in the book. Book is not a very highly updated reference for the journals, but sometimes we don't have option. We can still need to use them, but it has to be in a minimal way. To avoid plagiarism, we need to provide a kind of in-text citation. What is in-text citations? In-text citation and referencing on the simultaneously. In-text citation by when you try to bring an idea being brought by a particular author and researcher, you have to give accreditation to that author by citing his name and the year of publication of that idea. And that's reference, it has to be referenced on your reference section as well. So in-text citation will be done in two styles. The first style, either when the author and the years are in the bracket together, or when the author names and the year are separated in this format. In most cases, When you use the author and the years in the same bracket, it is commonly used in the introduction part. It is used to buttress the point that you are trying to raise. But when you use the author, then the name, the years also in a different bracket, this is mostly used in literature review because you are trying to convey the information that's been stated by a particular reviewer or set of reviewer when you use combination of names. So this comes in different aspects. When you use the authors in which the names are together, you can use series of them together. If you have the series of them together, that means the expression you are trying to convey to the people are one way or the other being discussed by different or various researchers. A complete details of each reference needs to be made. When you are doing the referencing, you have to state the title, you have to state about the journals you are in which the paper is being published. Another thing we need to understand in the term of academic writing is the peer review process. We understand that this peer review process in most of the journals, it is a, how can I say it? It's a kind of selfless activities that people try to contribute to the academic world, because most of the peer reviews are not being paid because they are doing it they are being selected based on their expertise in the particular field. So the peer review process is an integral part of academic publishing. It ensures the specialists in the related academic community properly vetted the quality of the paper. They want those assumed to be specialists or specially in perspective. Why I use assumed? Because most of the journal choose the specialist of the paper of a particular page based on publication list. So some of these special reviewers will be selected to try to read through the manuscript being submitted and put their scholarship justification based on it. So the peer reviewers will may be asked to give the opinion on different sections of your papers, whereby they will be asked to know whether the manuscript offer a useful or original contribution, because they don't want you to continue replicating what has been done in the past years. So they want to see whether it has the original contribution to the field of knowledge you claim to be, and does it adequately engage in the recent scholarship? That is, we want you to connect what you are writing to the current situation on ground. So let's say what you are discussing about and a research idea is no longer in discussion. That means the idea has been either solved or left unattended to. So they want something that is more recent so that the paper will gets cited by different reviewers, different researchers. And there also may be asked that there is a section need to expand or develop. Maybe they see some area that is not well explored by the researcher. So the reviewer will be able to comment on this, that the more work needs to be done, and the researcher has not convinced the kind of the work to be quality enough, or this has to be stated by the peer review. They will also have whether the paper you submitted, the manuscript you submitted, is suitable for the readership and claimed by the author, whether you really convey the necessary information that wants to be published in their website. So when the researchers are doing this kind of idea publishing, want to submit to the editors or the journals, we need to put in mind that they really want to see something quality, nothing that I just have an idea and I have to push it across. There are very important areas that the author has failed to recognize, also need by the viewer. So they want you to look into it and not to do a kind of slicing in your publication. They want to receive the whole in your paper in order for the many people to benefit from your writing. So now we do a kind of walkthrough through the academic sections, and we'll do a kind of submission repetition to the reputable journal. In order to decide on the journal to submit based on the Web of Science, because I have stated different with the database we can search. I mentioned about Direct, Science Direct, I mentioned about Emerald, but this example will go through the Web of Science. How to find a reliable article for search. Download the article from a reliable database such as Web of Science. Is a well-recognized database that you can download the data from, the article from. Also the Science Direct. You can also download from the Emerald and in the Science. A lot of them are reportable, but these are the more frequent reportable that people referring to when it comes to academic paper. So what you have to do is that either you log into the Web of Science by register as a researcher, or your university have the subscription in the Web of Science. Whatever, this has to be assumption that has been done. So for you to search the article under the Web of Science, you just write in the Google by saying the Web of Science. The list of information will come under the Web of Science, but you look for the derivatives of the Web of Science. This is the option that you need to take out of them, because all the others might lead to a different page of the Web of Science. After clicking on the Clarifate and you are able to log in, this is my login one, you see my name. So when you are able to log into the Web of Science, it gives you the article or cited references, because your focus is about the article. So this article, you can search by topic, and also you need to specify the terms, the keywords somewhere here that you want the topic to include. Let's say you want to include you want to search for a particular topic with reference to a particular keyword. So you look for the topic and you put the keywords here. This topic will be searched. If the topic has that particular keywords, the journal will bring those articles to you. So going by that, it is not only the topic that you can search with. You can also search by the title. You can also search by authors, publication title, year. It's just a numerous that you can use as a searching point. But in most cases, as I mentioned, it's also suggested that if you want to search by abstract or keywords, you can use a word with asterisk. Or this asterisk will give you all necessary words of this base so that you'll be able to have a broad view of your search. How to identify journal to submit to. After you have downloaded this series of articles, you have searched, you have downloaded the articles, you have made a kind of a particular articles, you can try to see, okay, before I write, what kind of journals do I need to submit my paper to? Try to search for the topic of the article in a relevant database to see what related articles in the field to be published. So, for example, you can enter in the Web of Science abstracts or the title in order for you to see those journals that have come up with a particular topic of your interest. Let's say after you have written your paper, you will have to come up with an abstract. Of course, your title, you have a broader title that you are trying to draw attention about, your researchable area. So putting that in the Web of Science will enable you to see the journals that have already published in that line or having the matching with your ideas. Also in the Elsevier, you have the journal finders. The Elsevier have the journal finders that will enable you also to come up with a list of journals that you can submit your paper to. Also, we can use journal guide by using either the keyword or abstract also to able to get the subject clarification. We have different journal finders that are also providing this. The essence of doing this is to make the life easier for the researchers in order to submit your paper to a reliable or appropriate journals. So by doing this, going by the Web of Science, in the Web of Science, when you log into the Web of Science, it will provide you these templates. This interface will allow you either to search the journal. If you want to cite a particular journal, it will allow you to cite by journal. It provides you a list of journals. Or you want to match your manuscript to a particular journal that is more appropriate. In this manner, you have already written an article you have an abstract of your article, so you want to see which one of these journals are more appropriate for your paper submission. So let's say we go by search journal. You just want to know what are the journals that have already one way or the other published your research idea. When you click on the search journal, it gives you a format template. So you can be able to see the list of the number of the journals that you can be referring to for a particular topic of your interest. If you search, give you this template, immediately you put the title on this. If we filter the journal that is most suitable for your particular topic, initially it provides you just a template. It has nothing to do with your topic. Because you click it, it changes the interface of the web page for you. So the next thing is just to put your title here in order to combine the journal, a particular journal, to your sign. Let's say in this also we need let me show you something. Under the filters, we can conduct a series of filters in our searching. We have a Web of Science coverage. Web of Science coverage is the core kind of the journals in the Web of Science. We can also publish using the open access, and also you can also want to search based on categories or region or country. If you want it to, okay, based on the particular region, you can do the filtering, or also you can do the filtering based on language. I want English only, no other language, because publication in the Web of Science are of different languages. So if you cannot understand a particular language, there's no point in using that article. So you can filter based on the language. You can also filter based on the frequency. Frequency means the number of times in which the journal is publishing. Some journal publish continuously, some journal publish 12 times a year, some journal publish quarterly in a year, some journal publish just once in a year. It depends. So the frequency of the journal publication is a kind of science that will give you information whether even if you submit to the journal, it will have fast tracking. That means you will be referring to in a very short period of time, or you are going to stay longer. For example, if the journal is an annual journal publication, this means before the researcher and the editor can refer to you, it might be taking a longer time because they only publish one paper in a year. So if it's more quarterly, there's tendency that you'll be reached within few months, and if it's monthly, probably that you will be reaching more frequently than any of those I have mentioned before. So when you search by the coverage of science, Web of Science, the core connection of Web of Science, we have Science Citation Index, we have Social Science Citation Index, Humanity, Art and Humanities Citation, and then Emerging Source Citation Index. So Web of Science, a kind of database that is very broad and also classifying the citation, the article published based on the citation that is more appropriate to your discipline. From the fact that I'm from social science, I would rather click based on the social science because I don't want to see unnecessary articles related that is I cannot comprehend the meaning from my search. So I will just pick based on my search criteria. So the meaning of this core science in the Web of Science is being stated here. We have Science Citation Index extended. This kind of citations has been in the Web of Science from 19th to the present situation, and then the index over 14,900 major articles from 150 disciplines. You can try to comprehend how broad this Web of Science in terms of searching for the articles. And in terms of the social sciences, they are the next to the science citations. And then we have what they call humanity, the number of the papers, the number of scientific applications, all these are being cited. Some conferences are published under the Web of Science. They have to go through the normal citations and the normal review. Those conferences are from over 160,000 journals are published on the Web of Science. Also, some books are also published, published in the Web of Science, and those books that started from 2005 to the present situation. So it is very easy to see which citation to be used or filtering that we might be need when we are searching for our article. Let's say you search by Science Citation Index. If it's a Science Citation Index, all the citations, the Science Direct core value will be Science citation only. It will not include all the criteria of citations. So it means you are able to filter your citation based on Science citation articles only. Secondly, like I'm from social science, I may prefer to have the article on that topic relating to social science citations. So once you are able to filter based on a particular core collection of the database, it will give you the citations and the article under that classification. Because we have more than enough in each of these broad certifications, so there's no point in going to something we will not be able to understand. So we can just filter unnecessary out of it. Let's say after I have searched based on social science citation, I want to understand the scope of the journals. So the next thing to do is for me to fill the profile page of the journal. If I click on the profile page of the journal, it will link me directly to the profile page of the journal that is on the website. Because we have problem now in the academic writing of the predatory journals. They try to con some of the original journals to convince the researchers as if they are reliable ones. So, but if you link their name to the Web of Science or reliable database, you'll be able to go directly into the correct journals. So let's say we click on the view the data page and the profile of the journals. So it gives me another broad information about that particular journal only. So it says me that the issue of the year, the issue number of papers they issue in a year, that means about the frequency, they are quarterly paper. That means they have 4 publications in each year. It tells me that the database is a regional data from the Australia. So this also gives me the year the publication started. This has been giving me a kind of information that I need to process before I send my journal and my manuscript to that particular database. To fill the journal website, I need to click this. Once I click that, it will lead me directly to the journal. This one provides me an interface of a summary of the information regarding the journal article. So by clicking on this, it links me directly to that particular journal. The journal is on the Wiley online database. So these are through this, I'll be able to read whether my intended article that I need to submit is confronting with the scope and condition of this paper. Because this is only when I can say my submission is not wrongly submitted. So, in searching of the article, let's say I search the article using the financial market as theory. In searching the article, it gives me 155 journals that match that content. That means the information that I search for. So, under this financial conducts, misconduct markets, it gives me series of articles. Because at this point, I did not filter, I just make it a general citation because I want to see whether it's an open access or not an open access, but I might have searched based on the core value of the Web of Science, and from social sciences, I want the article from social science, but I do not filter all the other categories. So it gives me the open access. It gives me non-open access. So it's up to me to fill their pages. If I want to publish with an open access, I will try to understand a reliable open access rather than linked with dubious open access. So what the open access do for the researcher, it makes the work immediately. Once your paper is being accepted, it will make it available and then online, and it will be permanent. Everyone will be having access to your paper. So it is a kind of an option that the researcher needs to subscribe to if they really want to pay for the publication and then making the article available. But the point at which this has to be done will be further discussed later. How to find a suitable journal for the manuscript. As I mentioned before, this is the journal search. This one is a manuscript. Manuscript matching, that is after which you have written your abstract. You have conducted your article review, you have done all the necessary, your manuscript is almost done. So you want to know which journal that matches based on your abstract. So once you click this, it will give you a kind of interface in the Web of Science in which you'll be able to put your title as well as abstract. Initially, last one, we search based on article that have published a particular idea. But this one, you want to do a kind of confined searching that will enable you to fit into your writing. So you have a particular article, topic that you are writing, and the abstract you have drawn from this. When you click find the journals, it will lead you to different journals, as I mentioned before. I don't want to go back to it. But when you are writing an article, for you to have a recognized on your paper publishing, it is more essential for each researcher to have ORCD. ORCD is an online application made available for us to be able to put all our credential information there, and there will be kind of code that will be generated for you. It is a unique code that is for each of the researchers. Immediately you add that to your particular article you are intend to submit. If the papers get access to publish, the ORCD will take note of it because it will search for you through online and take a current updated information about your articles. And then into the ORCD, different researcher employers can also go by your ORCD to see how you have contributed to the academic work. So each of these researchers, it is more advisable to have ORCD if you are choose to be an academician. This is to get your paper updated all the time you are getting published. In the ORCD, you can publish, you can have your ORCD in different languages. So it is not necessary to be English, you just need to click and change based on the language of your own country if it's available. But if it's not available, then you have to confine with the English one. This is just to say that ORCD is a kind of a web page that enable you to have updated information about your publications. Other publications paper, we talk about the conference paper. In terms of the conference paper, it's been mentioned that it has to be team based on the conference team. I mean, you can only submit a paper to a particular conference based on you meet the terms and conditions of that conference. If your paper is not in line, it will be rejected. So in this wise, personal contract, for example, your supervisor may advise you to submit a paper to a conference. Why do we need to submit to conference? Conference, it is essential to submit to conference. That's why they call that many people believe that conference paper is not as rigorous as article. But through the conference, you can be collaborated with a number of researchers who will put more value to your idea, who can be able to put you through in your article idea so that you'll be able to have a more broad explanation of your discussion before you submit to the journal. Sometimes when you submit or present in an article, a conference paper, people tend to put their own insight to your paper submission, and it's a value added to enriching the paper in the future. So this conference, sometimes the academic department may organize the conference by their own. Last year we did, this year in 2023 in the late January to early February, my department organized the International Conference on Real Estate. So this also brought to organizing the conference also is a kind of enable the students in an academic way to have a broad understanding of what is going on in the world. Because when you have academic department conference being organized, the student has to participate and able to listen to different experts in different fields of the related team, and they will be able to get more of few ideas that may be required for their papers. And often the specialists will be kind of the journals, or sometimes in journals, they also organize a kind of conference in order for you to be able to visiting their website, and also they keep on sending you the information about the upcoming conferences or the journals that is called for paper and all necessary things. So this is another way of marketing for the journals if they have the call for paper, especially if you have one way or the other published in that particular journals. And also, the organizing, we have to know that the organizing a conference is a time-consuming and labor. That is very costly. It's a labor-intensive. At the same time, it also kind of self-promoting, and your institutional also reputations will go high if you're able to do for it. So the conference, organizing the conference is have its own benefits and the cost to the institution. So conference publications. Conferences are useful for sharing your research idea, getting feedback from the scholars in your area, and it will help you to establish yourself and build a network which can result in the future collaboration of works, because we have discussed that the researchers are trying to elaborate and to collaborate in their work in order to have a very broad understanding or very broad discussion in a particular topic. Then to have information about the conference, you can register with some of these conference alerts that will be able to prompt you and send an email to your about the conference to your email, that this is upcoming conferences if you are willing to. And you are advised to leave, you are not, you in the conference, in such a kind of a conference calling, you'll be asking to leave your personal information. Before you can do that, you have to read a privacy notification, some condition before you do that. Because long as your information is provided, if there are dubious ones, your information may be used up. So therefore, there's a need for you to pay a kind of caution in providing your information to any of such conference call. Subjects or discipline-specific information may also be available. If you want to publish a paper you want to attend a conference in a particular area, you can visit some of the websites that will give you a very specific conference that is in line with your discipline, rather than receiving broad conference alerts. Now, we have discussed about the pros and the cons. We need to be aware of predatory journals or conferences. This is because these are damaging to our reputation. Academic work is not something that is easy to combat. So as a result, we need to be conscious where our paper goes to. In this situation, the researcher may try to set a junk email for the journals or conferences that is unwelcome. This email for the journals, let's say the journals have been pushing or sending you a kind of lot of information, you can confine their email to what they call junk mail, so that immediately they send, we just go to the junk mail without disturbing you. This occurs when you're receiving a kind of decision. This kind of decision may occur when you are receiving a kind of short information in a frequent number of times. Or journal can be asked you to send an email that has, you have told the journal to stop sending the email, and it keep on sending you your email. You can just confine that journal to the junk mail so that you will not be distracted by their information. So what we're trying to say, most of these journals that are sending such a kind of information are predatory journals. Most of them are predatory journals. So you need to be aware of these costs of publishing. Another way of detecting the predatory journals is by looking at the people, go to their website, look at the people and the places. So in most of the predatory journals, no editorial board is listed on their webpage. No physical address is given for the journals or the publisher's office. And you can also find that the founder or the head of publishing company is a kind of an editor for all the journals published in that. That is a kind of pediatric journal. You can sense the being a pediatric journal. Then the editor and the editorial member does not work or specialize in the field of the journal covered. Let's say you put somebody from the physics department as part of your editors. Editors in the list relating to the social science. What does he want him to do in that manner? Those are the things that you need to use to dictate whether the journal is reliable or not reliable. The editor board is the same in all journal published that the publisher is referring to. So it is not a reputable journal if you find those information in a particular journal. Then indexing. The pediatric journal use the indexing or metrics as an attractive point for researchers so that they will be able to fall into their traps. Though the pediatric journals claim to be indexed in major databases, but what they do is that they will write the name of different database in their webpage, and then but they are not existing there. They are using those information to fake the people. So they claim to be present, but what they use is the image. It's not the link. You will not be able to click it. You only to show the image. This means that they are not connected to those databases they claim to have connected with. Then pediatric journals claim to have that impact factor or listed on their website, but is not listed in the journal citation report. This is also a selling point to attract reporters, to attract the researchers. So we need to be very aware. We need to be conscious of these pediatric journals. In the nutshell, when you are talking about the journals to be submitted to, when you check the pediatric journals, they are numerous. They are over thousands in number. So it is not easy to comprehend all of them at a go, but you can be able to sense whether they are pediatric or not by assessing the article. If you assess most of the articles being published in their places, you will see the lack of quality in the article because they only undergo the publication because of monetary aspect of it, because they majorly mention about open access for publication. Then people and place, as I mentioned, need to be verified. In terms of the charges, they impose the charges in a kind of way that's very dubious or unclear. They also use the indexing and matrix to deceive people. Then the peer review also needs to be checked to see whether they are reportable. So identifying reputable journals, index journal. In most cases, if you want to differentiate between the pediatric journals and the reputed journals, you need to look for the open access, because these pediatric journals, they use the open access as their selling point. And you will charge this amount of money and all this price in order to fast publication. If you want to publish an open journal, in an open access journal, you can publish an open access journal either from the Web of Science, that is well reputable, or you can check the open access journal from the journal citation report. You can check from the master list, Scopus, direct open access journals, open access scholarly published, a lot of them available that are more reputable online, that you can be able to get their open access from them rather than getting the open access from unknown journal that will end up in kind of pediatric journals. So before you can submit an article, you can just, if you have a topic, journal in mind that you intend to submit to, you can just submit the name of the journal to the ThinkJect Summit. ThinkJect Summit will provide you, will verify whether the name of that journal, it is pediatric journal or reliable journal. This is to check for you for the journal of your interest before you submit them. You can also check the open access directory. If you have any journal that claims to be open access, you can check directly from the open access journal directory. If it's not available there, don't ever submit for that open access. And you can also refer to Web of Science master list, in which the link is also provided on this page. So let's say we want to check for the directory of open access journal. So this directory of open access journal, by clicking this link, it gives you that We have more than enough to publish in a reputable journal rather than going for predatory journals, because you have the journals that are available in 80 languages, 134 countries, the journals without processing fee. So you'll be able to have more than enough rather than fall into the traps of those default people. So what they do by ranking metrics for the scholarly publishing, when the article is being highly cited, citations, it shows that that article is highly performed. That is, the article is trying to address something that caught the attention of different researchers. So this article performance will be only attained if the discussion is broad and then full in whole. That means you are not slicing your publication. That is when you can have a very bright or high citation. This citation, talking about the journal performance. So if you want to quantify the journals, it's based on the performance, and it can be done about the journal impact factors or ranking. So the Web of Science and the Scopus can give you such and hints information about the impact and the ranking. With reference to the authors, because we talk about the performance of the article, that is the merit for the article that's been published. We talk about the performance that has to be journals performance, and the author itself or herself, himself or herself, also high index as a kind of meriting the publication you have made over the period of time. I give an example of one author, let's say index I for Salami MA since 2018. When you have the I index shows you that 7. This implies that it is an I index shows about the author level metrics. It is at times to measure both time of productivity and citation impacts of the publication of the scientists or scholars. So when you have the I index, it implies that a particular I index, it implies that there is a kind of publication that have received 7 citations on average. That is what it's trying to interpret. In terms of the journal articles, in terms of the journal, we use impact factors or journal impact factors if you want to make it more elaborate. So this is journal level metrics. Sorry, it is metrics. This is measured by the number of citations the article published in a particular period of 2 years, last 2 years, and on average, what is the metrics for that? If the impact is high, let's say after calculating the journal impact factors, if it is high, it implies that the article being published in the last 2 years received more citation from the other reviewers, other authors. That is, what they are publishing is more attractive or more in line with the interest of many researchers. So impact factor is a selling point for the journal. That is why you can see most of the pituitary journals to use the impact factor as a portable, as a kind of selling, or to make the researcher become a dubious one. The article accessible site. When you want to publish in the open access journal, open access journal allow the user to have a free online access journal and other content publication. Why do we need to go for the open access? Because if you do not publish in an open access, though when you publish an article, the journal may not allow your paper to be read by other reviewers. This means chance of citing your paper will be minimal. So in order to increase that citation, people who tend to make their paper to be open access. That is by paying either in full or partial for a particular paper. And sometimes some university database, they register with the, some university library register with some database. This provide them to let their research, this staff to have access to a number of database without having to pay for it. So open access developed as a response to technological change in the scholar publishing and charges in the commercial publishing business. So because they want to offer some fee, they keep on charging, and the need for the technological change also attract this open access. Technology allowed easier, faster, and low cost to create and deliver information, because when you purchase an open access, when you pay for the open access, people will be able to access your paper made available online. There's no need for them to keep the record of that paper, because when they go online, they will still find it. So it is also economically friendly, environmentally attainable and friendly. So subscription access through the organization applications are generally not required by the open access publication. I mentioned this by the library. The open access article is a legitimate open access publication, represent the scholar creative publishing. That is, they have to, if it's a reputable one, they also adhere to intellectual integrity. That is, they have to comply with necessary conditions for the credibility of that paper. That's why the fact it's an open access, they still need to comply with the necessary conditions. Then the benefits also gain through their work is they will be able to have a more citation. They need to maintain high quality as the peer review. Peer review in open access could be single, could be double, could be triple. It depends on different open access. So it includes, why do we use the number of blind and peer review than a blind one, is that if a single reviewer is being employed, being used in a journal, the final decision from the single is the final for your paper. This is very risky, because if the decision is rejected, the paper will be rejected. Only if the editor has some feelings for that paper that doesn't want to be, but there is limitation in this also. We have a double-blind reviewer. If you have a double-blind reviewer, it's more better than the single-blind reviewer, because if one say minor correction and the second one say major correction, or one say major correction, another one say reject, there is a tendency for the reviewer and for the editor to try to send the article to another reviewer to see whether it will be complying with rejection part or major correction. Then if you have a triple and blind reviewers, this implies that the majority of their say will carry your decision. So the more the reviewers, the better the chance to get your paper to be published. So include the policy in the open access. They include the policy for the various process that they need to be followed, and are frequently affiliated with the scholarly organization or institution. When they are talking about the open access, it is more reputable because it is more associated with either the organization or the institution. Also follow the professional standard of open access publications. Because they are open access does not deprive them from following this necessary due. They still have to comply with all the necessary. Now, this type of open access, we have gold, green, hybrid. Some people, sometimes they try to cross both of them together in one way or the other. When we have the gold access, gold open access, the publisher open access publication, the cost is varied. The processing cost may be required. If the processing cost charges is required, if the paper is rejected, the processing charges will not be given to you. Available in versions. When you have vinyl copy, peer review, both information may be available online. The copyright, Creative Commons license, the author are typically retain the copyright. When you publish your article in an open access, you have total copyright, not belong to the publisher any longer. Because you pay in full, you can share the license with people. They will also have the access. They have what they call self-achieving, typically allowed. That means you'll be able to have access to that article over and over. So we have green or hybrid open access. The green hybrid open access is a commercial publications. Commercial in the sense that the cost, author will pay the cost, and the processing are typically required and the varying in cost. In most cases, when they say the open access is an hybrid, sometimes the author may be allowed to convey the information about publication to some of their colleagues and the friends. The point at which the number given to the author is reached, no other one will be able to access that paper unless they pay for it. Let's say the maximum of 50 papers is allowed. That is kind of hybrid. So if any other person wants to get access to that, when the 50 has reached, you only need to pay to be able to read that paper. So the publishers are typically, they retain the copyright for the hybrid one. And they say it depends on the publisher about self-achieving. It depends on the term, because the copyright belongs to the publisher. Now, we go to the last portion of the presentation. This is due diligence to avoid predatory journal. As I mentioned briefly about the predatory journals as a publication that prioritizing profit over the academic integrity. How do they do this? The article published in the predatory journal is regarded as a waste because of no academic points for the publication. We understand what we have to go through in order to get the paper, article well written, and all these steps. So with all the stages, with all the process, so it does not worth anything if such a paper is published in a predatory journal. Predatory journals explore the open access publishing model because they have found that open access collects money from the researcher, so they see it as an attractive point for them to open a business of the academic database, so that they will be able to collect money from the researchers, despite the fact they will not do the required. So charging exorbitant fee without providing necessary quality control or peer review. And the researcher needs to be very curious about this. Sometimes the predatory journals may also send a request to a researcher to be their reviewer or to be their editor, even after you did not submit to them. They will say, we have read your publication and it fits and this and this. They will come up with very sugar-coated expression in the email. They want to invite you to be the editorial board or to become a reviewer. Immediately your name is in their database, is a problem. So before you accepting any of these things, you need to verify. It is subjected to further verification before accepting. The journal often make a false claim, claiming the reputations, index in legitimate database, which they are not. But they lack the rigorous editorial standards, ethical guidelines expected for the credible scientific publication. So how do we avoid this? Citing reference predatory journal is costly to the researchers. So we need to be desisting from citing their paper or referencing to their paper. Submitting your manuscript to predatory journal is very costly. This implies that we need to be well educated. Where do we need to send our paper to, without knowing or unknowing? This is because the fees charged by the predatory journals and unreliable articles. The article indicates the fee submission. When submitted to any of predatory journal, they will request for the fee submission, the processing fee. They can also ask for the publication bidding. That is, no clear amount will be clearly stated. The amount paid in the article process or publication fee before the article is accepted. In some of the reliable open access journal, they will say upon the article being published and accepted for publication, you pay so amount. So, but in the pituitary journal, they will request for submission fee. They will request for the processing fee. They keep on requesting for the name, and at the end of the day, you see that you have bent into their traps. The publisher efforts in APC, but do not giving an information how you become a member to benefit from that thing. Those are the dubious ways. They might say that because we have read your article and we know that you are this and that, a scholarly in this field, so we are giving you a discount. Just all the attempts is just to make you be a victim in their dubious publishing approach. The publisher can also offer an opinion for the researcher to prepare the APC for the future submission. So the web seems to be over-focused on the payment rather than quality of your publication. Dubious way of publishing academic. Not only did the pituitary journals are liable for the publication in a bad way, also sometimes the researchers are more curious or more willing, and at the end of the day, they are able to fall into this dubious way by knowingly publish in a pituitary journal. Why? Because they believe that the processing for the fast publication purpose, they can just have list of publications, and also they want to increase their publishing article unethically. So those are the conditions that we need to be distinct from. By indulging in Salami slicing or publication, they believe that a single article can be published into several publications. So in that unethical way, they will be able to get through with it. But in a reliable journals, this is not easily to be achieved. Then you can collaborations in names, but not in contributions. This is another way the dubious publication is made. You can see some publications that some people names will be there, but their contribution is zero. This is not what is expected in academic world. In most of the science direct publication, they will let you state specifically what each of the authors contribution to before you can be able to submit the paper to them, because they don't want a kind of ghost contributors. They don't want a kind of ghost co-authors who contribute nothing in the time of but want his name to be vented into the publishing. Also, enforcing citation even when it is unrelated. Some people, because their articles are not cited, whenever they do a kind of another article, they do kind of citation in an unrelated areas or unrelated discussion in order to put their name under citation. That is why in most cases in some institution, my institution incorporate that, you cannot include self-citation in this kind of citation you have to deduct it. So the self-citations is a means of getting citation by oneself, but it is not a question if such self-citation is relevant. But even at all, if it is relevant, it has to be minimal. Not every article you have published before you have to incorporate in all your publications so that you have a citation. And dubious self-citation attracts citation to the others. Dubious way of self-citation is not only approach that is dubious, also by encourage the others to do the citation for the researcher, even at all if it's not in the related field. That is why when they send a manuscript to you for the review, they will try to see, they will ask up to the reference point. Is the reference cited and related? That is the one to skip out the unnecessary citation that is not in line with the manuscript. What are the consequences of publishing in the pituitary journals? It damages the reputation of the researchers. When the people got into the pituitary journals to verify the names of those who are reviewers or the editors, board of editors and the rest, your name is, if once the name is there, the people will start questioning what you have published before. they will have kind of reservations for you in that for his name to be in this kind of thing, these articles needs to be further verifications. Then academic paper published in the pituitary journal have no academic point. That means, as I mentioned before, it is a waste. And most university libraries, they have the means of tracing the article publishing in pituitary journal so that they can be able to screen it out when you are claiming your KPI. So what is the benefit we have to acquire by publishing in such a journal that has no value to our academic field? Even if the author wants to, another problem with this pituitary journal is that if the author wants to withdraw their papers from the pituitary, let's say it's submitted unknowingly and later find out that it is a pituitary journal, if you want to withdraw your paper, because they use that paper to generate a metrics, they use that paper to create a kind of an attractive point for the other researcher who might not have fought to their traps before, it is very difficult for them to withdraw your paper. They might not withdraw your paper. Even if you request for it, I'm not going to claim my money, just withdraw, don't drop my paper, you will not do it. Because they are not after you, they are after their monetary aspect of of their business. Many universities also discourage publishing in the pituitary journal for the university reputations. Because once you publish there, your name is not only there, but also the institution in which you are working with also will be, all the information will be on the pituitary journal webpage. So in order to maintain quality of their reputations, they discourage from doing so. So in conclusion, academic writing experience is acquired through the continuous writing. This has to say that when you are writing an academic paper, you cannot be perfect on set. It is a kind of continuous writing. You have to keep on doing it over the time. So receiving the kind of rejection should not be something discourageous, because even if professors can receive rejection from the article being verified or anonymously reviewed by a mere doctor. So rejection is just a way that we need to treat with fear. So we learn the way of writing in an academic way in a continuous manner. Then academic good practice are essential to be emulated. So we need to know that and also understand that academic writing is an image, is an electronic image we have, that even if they have never seen you in before, that kind of publication you have outside is your representation in the people's mind. So having the good practice is very essential, as it will be following your needs. So the quality of academic papers are better than the quantity. So when you are to write an academic paper, you think of the quality, rather than I want to get 5, 6, that we end up in the dubious way of slicing an article into various papers. So the purpose of academic writing is to disseminate information that is important and that can benefit humanity, not just writing. If that is the motive we have, we'll be able to know that we need to focus more on quality than the quantity, because the essential things need to be achieved. Then maintain a good academic reputation by not indulging in slicing your publication, because at the end of the day, people will get to know that this is supposed to be a one article publication rather than various. That means it is a not lasting approach. So it is better to restrain from such an attitude. Then cultivate the habit of reading articles in your field from the reputable journals. This will broaden the knowledge that's essential for each and all. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ayojimi Salam. I think it's a very, very comprehensive materials, about academic writing. And then I think the subtitle should not pros and cons, but secret recipe. And also you have already covered all, yeah, from the rationale of writing academic paper to the methodology and also the ethic about the publishing an academic journal, etc. And I think we have a very limited time for question and answer, but yeah, still it has to be. So anybody from the participant who would like to raise question to our distinguished speaker, Associate Professor Ayojimi Salam, you can raise your hand to emoticon, or you can also open your voice. Open your speaker. Anybody, please? Yeah. Anybody would like to raise question? Yeah. Maybe while waiting for the participants, may I myself ask Associate Prof. Ayojimi? Yeah, I think in the beginning there is a slide says that always question its sentence with so what question. I think this is very important because this is the way how to keep us writing.
Yes.
Maybe you can give us the, what is it, a kind of responses to this kind of question, so we can elaborate the point from the sentence that we ask the question. So what question? That's the first one. And then the second one, you also give some essential research tool. Some are quite familiar for us, for example, like Grammarly and also Mendeley, but there is some that we still need to know more, like WordTune. What's the difference between WordTune and Grammarly? And also the for the qualitative one, you also mentioned Atlas.ti. What's the difference with Atlas.ti with NVivo? And also for the productivity, the notions, I don't know whether it is something like we need to put every writing that we have already wrote in that, and then we continue until it becomes the paper. Yeah, thank you very much. I think that's all from my question.
Okay, thank you so much for the questions. I'm very happy to address those questions. Actually, I have to start from my own experience. When I was doing my Ph.D., and then when I submit my paper to any draft to my supervisor, and when he read the paper, he has Salami, and so what? Then I will become so curious. He says, if you can address each of the expressions you have made and so what, will enable you to question your own writing, whether you have provided sufficient information or not. This has to be with individual writing. So if I have to say that, let's say there is negative relationship between the performance and productivity. Let's say we find positive or negative relationship. Okay, that is a statistical explanation. What and so what? What can you add? What kind of broad explanation can you bring into the context? We understand this is an expression. So if there is a positive relationship, what does it mean? That is and so what. If there is a negative relationship, what does it mean? That is and so what. So even at all, when it means this, what is your contributions in the field in that kind of findings? So you could not only give the statistical information, but also to interpret your information in a very broad manner that the layman will be able to understand. This is when you can say you contribute to the academic world. In most cases, when you read some article, they will just say statistical information without any further explanation. And you'll be so curious of what do they want to bring about. So we need to make make our academic world to be more understanding. And I have also participated in some of the conferences that collaborate between the academia and the industry. And then in that point, they were trying to explain that most of the academic writers, they only write for themselves. They are not contributing. I'm so curious. Then I try to look into the way we write in academic way. We only write to merit our KPI in order to fulfill certain conditions. He said, according to the man, he said that most of our analysis or our way of presenting the idea do not confine the necessary information to the work. That is why most of our work is not well recognized. But this is not the scenario we should portray ourselves. We need to portray ourselves in such a way that we understand. Then there's another occasion whereby I was reading an article and the writer tried to mention that you need to put your audience into consideration. It is when you answer the question, you question yourself and so what, you'll be able to know that the audience, would they be able to understand what you are saying? If they cannot, that means you have not delivered the message. So, according to him, he said, when you are saying you are presenting an idea, it has to be understood by 3-year-old baby. If a 3-year-old baby can understand what you're, that is only when you disseminate. Most of the academic paper we are writing cannot be understood by even the associate professors sometimes, because the way we are writing is so technical enough that it requires further understanding. And also, on the term of the tools, some of these tools, I have used them. In terms of the Wharton and Grammarly, I know these two tools. The Grammarly, as I explained, it is available in free version and also the paid version. Likewise, the Wharton. In the Wharton, it suggests, let's say, you want to underline a particular expression for you that you have written on your own, not copy-paste. You have written, you are trying to paraphrase a particular thing. The Wharton will assist you to paraphrase it more than in a clearer way. So we suggest for you underline it. Once you click on the Wharton, it will give you up to 3 or 4 different ways of presenting the same idea. So it depends on the individual to say, okay, this is the way I want to present it. So you can click on it. This is not considered to be plagiarism because the idea is coming from you. It's only tuning your paraphrasing approach. Also, in terms of the Grammarly provides more broadening things in terms of that. Though I did not subscribe to Wharton, I cannot say precisely, authoritatively, whether there is other features in it, but the free version that is available online is only providing you alternative way of presenting your idea. But Grammarly, I subscribe to the Grammarly. I use Grammarly a lot because I don't really pay for the editors. I mean, for the proofreaders and all the rest. So I do the thing by myself, and I try as much as possible to leave the research and go back to it, leave the research and go, so that I'll be able to comprehend whatever I want to. The Atlas.ti and the other approach, I am not subscribing. I'm not a researcher of qualitative research, but I have an opportunity to went for the workshop on Atlas.ti, in which when the article is being transcribed, they can do the teaming for, when they put it in the Atlas.ti, they can try to do the teaming or all these things, but I'm not very strong in that aspect. I'm sorry, I cannot explain, but I know it's a tool that is being used for qualitative approach. And for further clarification, if I intend to use it, I still need to explore on this aspect. On terms of the notions, I have the notion, I use the notion, because I believe for myself also that not all the information about the academic publication can be comprehended. We have a lot of things to teach in the class, to write a paper, to attend conferences, and run other administrative tasks. So if I want to publish a paper, I will put the name of paper in the notion. If the paper is going to be due in 2 months, I will tell the notion to remind me a month before the due, so that even at all, if I have not started anything at all, that notification will prompt me to start preparing for the article so that it will be a quality paper. Then sometimes when I receive feedback from the editor, maybe decide that I have to fulfill certain corrections based on the publications, articles that I've submitted to the journal. If I cannot do this instantly, I prefer to put it in the Notion so that I will not forget it in total. Sometimes I receive review of articles from the publishers. So in times I used to put them in Notions so that it will keep on reminding me of my academic work. So it enables one to see what the stage of this academic paper. Maybe you have started, you can even state it has been started, it's ongoing in this, all this information will be there. So, and also if it's an call for paper, there's a portion you can put the link there. So when you put the link, immediately you click on the link, it will link you directly to the web page of the call for paper. So it is more productive.
Thank you very much, Ayojimi. It's very, very informative. Anybody would like to raise questions to Associate Professor Ayojimi Salam? We still have 1 more minute.
Ada, Bu.
Oh ya, silakan. Yeah, Pak Yulian Hadromi, can you please open up your video?
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, Ms. Ayojimi, I'm Yulian Hadromi. I'm Ibu Nurhidayah student.
Welcome.
A question regarding the use of artificial intelligence, such as chatbots for writing for educational purposes. As convenient as chatbot may be, they have also created a new problem for students. With the help of chatbots such as GPT, students can easily fake assignment. And as you may know that some countries and many universities, such as in Japan, have banned the use of chatbot by students to write assignment. In this regard, what is your view on the use of this technology, and also any restriction to use this technology in your country? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much for raising this question. AI per se is trying to, from my own perspective, especially in academic work, we should not see AI too more comfortable for our writing. It is destructive to our writing, because if you tell the GPT a particular topic, say you want to find out of it particular, it goes to search online for you relating to your request. So in doing this, it kills your idea, innovative idea in you personally, it kills it. You will not be able to think outside the box than what is being provided for you. Maybe if you do it by yourself, you will have done it better. But the idea or the thing that's being incorporated in us, that technology always smarter than we do, has been giving us the opportunity to rely on this technology and able to think that it can do something better. Like a situation whereby I was discussing with my son. He's studying in International Islamic University. He's doing his master's in IIUM. And he was discussing with me, Mom, do you know that ChatGPT can do a lot of things? Okay. Can you? And then I gave him 2 topics. But here in Turkey, it is not allowed. It is restricted. You cannot use ChatGPT easily, or maybe because of the university database. I had him to do, because I want to teach him by the way I discourage with the use of the ChatGPT. Then he gave me, Mommy, you see, it provides enough of information within short period of time. When I read through those information provided by ChatGPT, I just see that the information is very related. Different topic, I just decided to give related topic in such a way that it will be difficult for the IT to differentiate what I mean. So if I want to write on my perspective, I will write from different field, different from what the ChatGPT is. And not only that, the journals of nowadays will let you specify the section that is written by AI. You must specify. If they dictate by themselves, your paper will be rejected. I don't buy using of ChatGPT. It's making us to be dull and not productive. I am not subscribed to that. I don't buy the idea. Then another friend of mine, he has to give a kind of presentation in one topic at the one seminar. He said, oh, I'm not smart. He was referring to me that I don't use ChatGPT because I'm not smart enough. I said, welcome, I accept it. But I will never subscribe to it because it will keep my initiative, my intentions, and the way of that direction of doing things. I don't like it. So he decided to have his own way of writing the presentation and further go into the ChatGPT. And later contact me, doctor, you see what? I said, what? This ChatGPT is very stupid. I said, oh, no, don't call it stupid. It's your friend. So it has turned all my inspiration. The way it brings the idea is different from the way I want to do. And then my ability to think has been distorted. I said, you have to go through it. That is your friend. So we don't need to accept technology more than it's required. Otherwise, we will not be relevant in our field any longer. And also, ability to think. Let's say I do the analysis. Let's say I run the analysis. I have some kind of findings. If I use the ChatGPT to produce the introduction literature review, will I use the ChatGPT to explain my findings? It's not possible. But because I did not go through the rigorous of those steps, it will be difficult for me to explain it in a better way or in a cited way. And the use of ChatGPT can also lead us to plagiarism issue. Because when the ChatGPT brought an information for you, it's information of some people that try to combine together. So synthesizing may not be proper. And if your name is written in an article or any publication, you carry the blame, not ChatGPT. I heard there was an issue during my Ph.D. whereby they have to claim the authoritative of one lecturer because of plagiarism issues. So we need to be cautious. ChatGPT is an image that we cannot question to the court of law. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Associate Prof. Ayojimi Salam. Anybody would like to raise question? Yeah, I think time is up, but maybe the participant would like to ask whether you would like to share your PowerPoint presentation for all the participants.
Yes, so I will try my best to share it, but because I completed the thing very fast and I want to put some references, you can see when my presentation, there is no references section being fulfilled. So I need to fulfill that page before I can send.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's very, very, substantive materials. And then because of the constraint of time, we cannot follow up every tips that you provide us in your PowerPoint presentation. And I think there will be another workshop to follow up your tips in order to be an effective academic writer. Okay,
I'm not available. I'm not available. You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Ayojimi, would you like to make a closing statement for your presentations today?
Okay. Thank you so much, and thanks for listening to my presentation and your patience. First of all, I have to ask permission or to request from you if I have one way or the other fasted presentation. Please accept my weakness in that part. That's the way I used to. And that's why when I want to start any conversation, I usually ask people, if I'm moving fast, please call me down. During my undergraduate, I have something of that nature. When I started in Malaysia, most of my professors and my lecturer would say, come down, you are not rushing to anywhere. Come down, you are not rushing to it. That is the way I find myself. I'm sorry. Actually, academic writing is something of process. And then we have to cultivate an idea of writing on daily basis. It is not something of perfection in a day or month or days. And we are prone to rejection of articles. The more you receive the arguments or comments from the reviewers, it's a way to make you a better person, not a negative comments, use just to process it in a positive way. That will keep you moving forward and it will keep you active in your field. And also, when you claim to be an academia, it is essential that you try to read an article related to your field, at least one article in a day. One professor told me, how will you claim yourself to be an academician if you don't know what is going on in your field? So this is the way, especially we that we claim to come from the knowledge that's, the religion that said we should search for knowledge often and often, Islamic context. So we need to try as much as possible to try to know more in order to disseminate information that is real and then up to date to the people around us. So it is very, very essential to keep it as a something of our habits to read and disseminate information. Sometimes the academic writing is not friendly to read, I must confess. You read the academic writing, it's just like boring. It's not like a novel. But notwithstanding, it is an environment we establish ourselves, we find ourselves. We need to find ourselves comfortable in that environment. It is something we have to train ourselves to be able to comply with it so that we'll be able to be in a better position in the near future.
Thank you very much, Associate Professor Ayojimi Salam, for your insightful, informative, and maybe very substantive material on how to write an effective academic writing. And you give all the tips and tricks and then strategy, provide us a very effective strategy for academic writing while still based and hold to the academic integrity. I think this is the most important thing, Ayojimi Salam. I think on behalf of the moderator, I would like, and then all the Faculty of Economic and Business UIN Syarif Hidayatullah Jakarta, would like to say Jazakillah khairan kathiran wa khairal jaza wa ahsanal jaza to Associate Professor Ayojimi Salam for your sharing of your knowledge, your experience, and your expertise on academic writing. Hopefully, your materials and your knowledge can be very beneficial for us in developing our academic integrity and our academic career.